Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It's a little after 10 a.m. Saturday morning. Uh, we'll go ahead and get started with questions. See if we have any questions uh, from anything you may have seen this week or anything we've talked about. Questions or comments? Anyone? I guess just a couple of things. One is an observation how the temperature and we've talked about weather changes and stuff before, but the extreme temperatures in certain parts of the country and again there was reports of flooding and some other things going on. So if you look at state of the world, famines and a lot of stuff going on. Very active situation. Uh, the things just in seem to be. I don't want to call it turmoil, but even looking at the state of the Republican Party or politics in general, just things seem to be very active these days. Uh, any comments? Anybody observe anything in any thoughts on any of that?
Hey, this is Nick. Yeah, the I was reminded of on a physical level. You know how matter changes between solids and liquids and gases. There are also other states of matter, but one of them in particular is actually I forget exactly, but my point is at the point of transition between a state of matter, that state always becomes chaotic. So it's like there is a crescendo, there is a building up of energy in the system, and then at the point just before transition, that system becomes very, very chaotic.
Okay.
So it is sort of literally in the physical, which is the expression of the spiritual. That same pattern of transition is in how physical matter itself it basically changes or transitions to new states. And since the physical is a mirror of the spiritual in a lot of ways, I believe that when we see or perceive that the human society or the human system is becoming more chaotic and there's more of a increase in the speed at which change occurs, then that is an indicator of that exact same process. So that the most amount of chaos is right before a sort of complete shift into a new state or a new cycle or era, one that is completely different from the previous one. And
Yeah.
I think that we are still very much in that transition, and it has not gotten as chaotic as it will, or as it could potentially get, I should say. But as I've always said, I think we do make the transition, but there will always be something to potentially pull us out of our own balance or awareness and sort of attempt to capture our attention away from our sort of inner focus, our capacity to be aware of the still small voice and to be aware of sort of what is going on behind the outer appearance. So I just see similar pattern playing out in human society that is indicative of this sort of transition or shift that we are currently seeing picking up speed. Thank you.
Me, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Monday, but I remember, I think someone, I can't remember who brought up the latest dust storm, if you will, that's coming headed this way from Africa. And Pastor spoke on it some, I think must have been Monday. And we were looking at the sand being the consciousness coming from Africa and along with the breath. It just thought about that when you were talking about that. Is that a tie-in? Does that have something to do with the chaos that we're seeing in the rest of the earth? Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, that same sort of chaos is present in all of the interactions that we have in the physical experience. Nature itself is very much reflective of our. I think there are always cycles in nature, periods of sort of harmony and periods of disharmony, but it is also reflective very much of our own stewardship of the planet or lack of stewardship. So in the case of the desert, there's a lot we're doing to increase the rate at which deserts are created. I think it's an example of something that we have the responsibility to correct, but don't. And so it comes to make our lives more miserable. So it's very much a part of that sort of overall chaos. I think it's more of a just a reminder of what it is we have to fix, or what we have the ability to fix.
So just like the chaos though and the transition that you spoke of that we're in the middle of, what seems to be harmful with the eyes, from the onset, though, from a spiritual sense, is not what it appeared to be, or it doesn't have to be what it appears to be, right? So speak on it from that perspective. That's what is the positive in all of this? Because all of it can send the world into a frantic state, but the calmness sees what in all of this?
Calmness sees the harmony on the other side of the chaotic situation and does not become enmeshed in that chaotic state of mind. The calmness is it is wise in that sense that it sees the, as we've said, end in the beginning. It sees through the immediacy of the chaotic situation. And in so doing, projects itself into the future and creates a foothold in the future for that more harmonious situation. The chaotic state, as we've may all heard that phrase, I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but in chaos there lies opportunity. It's very, very true, because chaos is the one benefit is that there's unlimited sort of potential for anything to happen. So if there is enough focus, if there is enough embodiment of that harmonious state, even within chaos, then that becomes the seed around which all of that chaos shifts to that harmonious state. Does that help?
Yes, it does tremendously. Anyone else? Anyone else want to speak on what Nick just said? or any comments for that matter on what we're discussing.
What came to my mind when Nick was talking was let it be during the creation period.
Uh-huh.
Let there be light, and the division of the darkness from the light. I think that we are in a let there be moment, if that makes any sense. We're in a place where we are not going to literally change the energy by casting a vote. We can change the people. But based on what Nick was saying, I think that if I'm hearing you right, Nick, we change the energy, just the thoughts, by a let there be moment, as opposed to wondering when things are going to change, or just submitting ourselves to the belief that they're just going to get worse and never change. And that let it be moment is when we are, as we've been saying for a while, on the same page, in that there is no doubt about what we know about ourselves and what we embrace about ourselves in terms of being the, for lack of a better word, protectors of the earth and its environment, by virtue of simply speaking and believing wholeheartedly what is being said. Because if we don't believe wholeheartedly, then the energy that goes with our words is very chaotic, and it adds to the problem. However, if we totally believe and embrace what we are saying, that is what brings order out of the chaos. That's what I mean by let that be moment. I'm done. Oh, and Nick, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I believe so. And I would add the being on the same page is very much that seed that allows the chaotic situation to shift to it, or to grow around it. And the more people who are on the same page, the greater the potential to move in that direction of whatever the intentions, the beliefs, the focus of that group of people.
Okay. Thank you. As always, we believe it is important to talk about these things to not only shed some light, but bring some calmness to it if anybody feels agitated by things that we see. We sometimes it may even help not to notice a lot of things, but it all has a purpose and it all comes together or will come together. And just believing in who we are, as Pastor said, and what we're doing. How do we see ourselves? Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Let anyone else, questions, comments, then I'll say something.
Morning, Ron.
Yes, sir. Hey, George, how we doing?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Pastor spoke, on the word about. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Pastor spoke about the word Alkebalon. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I wanted to, follow up on that because I think that if we talk about, looking at the beginning and at the same time having a foundation in terms of us being able to see how humanity manifested from a standpoint of the beginning. I knew he had mentioned something about, that Africa was not the original name, but at the same time, in terms of that continent, but more importantly, what that name meant. And I was just wondering if he can, maybe expound upon that. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, George. Pastor, did you understand the question?
Yeah, okay, Bulan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that name, like as I said when we first talked about it, that name is the original name of Africa. That was actually that was the name that Africans gave to the continent, and it spoke more of spirituality than it did of a landmass. And when we look at it through the eyes of etymology, it is the oldest indigenous word on earth, Kebulan, and it means mother of mankind, but more importantly, it also means the Garden of Eden. So that in itself tells us where the beginning of all life, where all life emanated from, being the continent. And of course, anthropologists have been saying that for years, but then to revisit their name and see that this name was attached to it long before there were anthropologists. And I do believe that we are being introduced or reintroduced to this word and its meaning because of where we are. And it does indeed tie together with what Nick was talking about when he talked about the increased chaos means that we're at a point, a turning point. And this reintroduction of this word into our vocabulary, or more importantly, into the earth, that reintroduction of it also tells us that we are creating something, and the something that we are creating is order in the earth. And the reason I use the word creating is because so many of us have not totally wrapped our minds around that it is already here, because we keep looking for it with our eyes as opposed to experiencing it with our soul. The more we experience it without these distractions we have, the more we're going to see with our eye the truth of the nature of it, rather, and the manifestation of it with our eyes. So I guess the bottom line is, Bulan gives us an opportunity to see with the eye so that the eyes can see. Because right now, for the most part, the eyes are really blind to the light. The eyes are blind to the harmony that exists in the earth but has not been manifested. Why do I know it exists? Because for how many years have we been traveling this journey, and the harmony that we have with each other is no different than what Jesus said in 17th chapter John. Those that you have given me, I've kept them. All Jesus is really saying is that we are in harmony. They didn't agree all the time, but they were in harmony. There were a lot of questions raised between them, but they were in harmony. And when we see the harmony that exists with us, then we become the extension or the essence of that Garden of Eden, whose presence is necessary in order for us to manifest what we see with our eye, and that is our unicity. That's harmony, because from the creation of the world, from the beginning of our beloved, all the life that came from there. There was racism, was entered in misogyny actually were introduced. Misogyny was introduced with Catholicism in a big way, and Islam. With the later Islam, I should say, because Muhammad did not teach misogyny. And racism didn't come into existence until the Protestant Church came into existence. So the things that we have been saying about Christianity and unwrapping the hidden issues with it, what we actually have been saying is we are exposing not only Christianity, but we are exposing the source of it, and that's the Protestant Church. And every one of us on this phone came from Protestant backgrounds. And the more we understand that and the origins of the things that has brought disharmony, the better off we will be, the easier it will be, rather, for us to see with our eye as opposed to seeing everything through our eyes. I hope that helps. I'm done.
George, how did?
Yes, that definitely helped. And, again, I was just, reflecting since the last time we met, and there were just some things that was mentioned, and even, Ron, you mentioned in reference to the number 8. And I was just trying to just do some reflections because, the spiritual essence of our desire to understand our foundation, I know is important to us. I know it's important to me. And I think being able to return to the beginning, as, you and others have mentioned, over the past, we still seem to be seeking more deeply, what, the Spirit is revealing to us. And so when you had mentioned, Ron, something in reference to the number 8, and I think just briefly, we know, and I think Pastor mentioned that number 8 represents new beginning, but there was also, the number 4, and the number 4 and 8 has been in my spirit, for a period of time. And so I just want to, just mention this, that the spiritual meaning of number 4 is the number of being, and it's the number that connects the mind, body, spirit with the physical world, of structure and organization. But the 4 symbolizes the safety and security of home, the need for stability and strength on a solid foundation of values and beliefs. And the spiritual nature of number 4 calls in the need of having or creating a sacred place, and sacred, like in your home, or a place to meditate and build on your most foundation of strength of being. And so with all of that, being said, again, in terms of us being able to appreciate, how we see with our eye, but how does that reflect in us moving forward in terms of being able to understand the holistic aspect of our being. And I think that, again, understanding our Kabbalah has helped. And at the same time, we still want to look at that. So when you mentioned about the number 8, Ron, it just made me reflect a little bit on number 4 and number 8. And I think that, again, it's just something that, we need to be thoughtful about in our spiritual journey. I just want to share those thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you, George.
Good morning, everyone. Forgive me.
Well, let me say this right quick, George, because he said something. He and Pastor when Pastor talked about harmony and mentioning the I versus the eyes, Pastor said something about the they didn't always agree, talking about Jesus and the disciples. And uh, I look at us on the phone, and I see it something with that. The harmony has a lot to do with what balance looks like. Uh, we all see things from our perspective, and that is the harmony. So it isn't so much like, for example, if you listen to, we had three main speakers this morning, Pastor George and Nick, and they all said a mouthful. And you think about how to bring all that together. I would explain it one way. Kathy would explain it one way. George, you're on the phone now. You would explain it one way. So, but that all of it, all of our understanding together is harmony. We're all on the same path. We all believe in the journey, and we are part of the journey. We've submitted to the journey, but we understand in our own language, in our own way, and that is the bringing together, the harmony. I just thought that was beautifully said, and oh yeah, I appreciate it. And even when George tied in the number 4, blending everything together, mind, body, spirit, with what is, and all of that is a transition. And the mentioning of number 8 simply says we take journeys that our eyes see, but when we open our eye, we see we're still at beginning. At least that's my take on it. Yeah, I just thought that was beautifully said. Thank you. Any questions on that before George? Because George, are you going to take us in a different direction?
No, I just wanted to add on to what
okay. I'm
Reverend Richard said. Well, the thing that I find intriguing about a cable line, as Reverend Richard stated, if you ask Google where's the Garden of Eden, anthropologists and archaeologists will tell you a cable line. And they will tell you a cable line is the original name of Africa. However, what's really intriguing about it is a cable line was not about man, religion, and politics. That didn't exist. What did exist, though, was people working with one another, not people working for one another. The commodities of that time, vinegar was a currency. Seasoning salt, pepper, garlic, that was the currency of a cable line. 1 mile. The other aspect of a cable line is being that it did not have man, religion, and politics governing it, the two things that you will not see is a disrespect of feminine energy. And when I say disrespect of feminine energy, that means that there's no disrespect toward humanity. And the other thing that you will not see in a cable line is no form of capital punishment. Whenever you see man, religion, and politics, these are the two things, well, 3 things you see: a disrespect of feminine energy toward humanity, a disrespect of the female, and you will also see strong forms of capital punishment. In my research, Theodosius and Justinian and the Greeks and the Catholic Church, all of them played a part in changing the name we got dog Alexander the Thief, got him too. All of them played a part in changing the name from a cable line to Africa. So I encourage you all, if you're not familiar with it, find out why the name was changed. And I would suggest to you, go to any African American that's a part of a Greek organization They should check because they have to know about Theodosius because Theodosius was of Greek influence and he ruled half. I think he ruled half of Rome. I don't know which side it was. But nonetheless, though, Kabbalah is the original name of Africa, and when we name these continents, we shouldn't say Africa. We should call it at least meet it halfway, a Kabbalah and or Africa, or just leave off the Africa. But it's very intriguing that a Kabbalah is a maneuverability. It's how you get down. It has nothing to do with man, religion, and politics and that kind of nature. Thank you very. And the other thing, Ron, the harmony thing that you brought in, that you brought in, harmony always ain't gonna come by peaches and cream. It's not always gonna come by the go along, get along group. Because if you're in the go along group, you don't have anyone that brings harmony. So sometimes harmony will come by the antagonist. Sometimes harmony may come by, it's just interesting how harmony come into play. It may come in by way of an argument. It may come in by way of a peaceful conversation. Like I say in music, Barry White, the Bobby Bird, guys who sing tenor, if you start a musical group, you have to have a tenor so everyone else can be heard. Yet if you don't have that tenor, you're not going to hear the bass, you're not going to hear the alto, you're not going to hear the soprano. So harmony can come in from many different avenues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. You said a lot there, and you're exactly right. I guess what I was trying to say is all the differences help bring about harmony. The journey is always the same. That we're all headed in the same direction and seeking the same things, uncovering truth. But it's all the diversity or the different experiences that bring it all together. So yeah, but you said a lot. Any comments or anybody on what George said? Questions or comments?
A couple of things. If your expectation is for people to be as you are or as you want them to be, there will never be harmony. Because harmony does not mean that we are in lockstep and that we are exactly the same entities. The other thing is when we speak about the name being changed, the Greeks did that, and as they changed a lot of other names, like Ethiopia was changed, but a lot of Egypt was changed because they couldn't pronounce the words and they didn't know what they were saying. It was the actual name of Egypt. I can't remember it, but the pronunciation of it, but it was not Egypt, neither was it Kemet. The Greeks did change most of those names. However, it did not change the true energy that accompanied those names. And the reason that names the reason that they used for changing names is because they understood that names carried spiritual energy, and that is one of the reasons the Catholics translated into Latin and with no access to what was translated to anyone except the priest. When we look at what's happening now, all of the words that we talked about the other night that were changed, it doesn't change the energy of them. The attempt was to change the energy. But the energy is there in that name. However, if you see it as something else because someone has told you that's what it is, then you are projecting the energy that you embrace. If you do, as George obviously had done quite a bit of research, if you do that and you understand what's being said, then that energy is released again within you. It's not gone. It's not dead. It's not hovering over the geographical location of Africa. The energy, the spirituality of that name is in the breath of everyone who breathes. It's how you embrace it. And when in Africa, everything that we have been taught about Africa has been very negative, because there are those who know the original name and what it means. That is no secret to the ones who control who controls the translation of the scriptures and who controls the power in the earth. I say all of that because I want us to understand that Akebulon, you may not ever pronounce it, but you've heard it, and that wakes up the energy attached to that in you. If you try to focus on it in an intellectual/academic way, it does nothing for you. But if you see it for what it is, not a landmass, but a spiritual concept of life itself, if you see it from that perspective with your eye, then you begin to see that without Akebulon, there's no Europe, there's no China, there's no Japan, there's no anything. You begin to see that everyone benefits from Akebulon, regardless of whether they are the enslaved or the slaver. Everyone benefits from it if they choose to. And our objective is to saturate the environment of the earth with the energy of spirituality, so that regardless of what you think or where you turn, it's always going to be there. And everyone who is searching for change, without regard to your national origin, your ethnicity, will be able to ingest or receive the energy that we put into the macro by our discussions, and therein that is where we see the change. And the agitation that Nick was talking about earlier, we are the ones who stir things up. We are responsible for this heat wave. We are responsible for earthquake. We're responsible for all that. We've been through that before. We are responsible for that. And we can't stop here. We have to put back in order the things that we have posed that makes things so chaotic right now. That order comes when we embrace what the truth is. That order comes when we embrace each other. That order comes when we respect those who do not believe as we believe, those who really would ridicule us for what we believe. We respect all of that because we are at a place of saying, of room, forgive them because they are not aware of what they're doing. That's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments, anyone? Okay, good discussion. Good discussion. I want to bring up something else that I think hopefully kind of tied into what we're saying. everybody this morning spoke about energy, and Dick even mentioned transforming energy. And I saw something. Uh, Again, we see things all the time on social media or whatever. And I was looking at something on TikTok that seems to be growing in frequency and maybe even growing in popularity. They show a lot of videos on TikTok about history. They do a lot of Bible stuff, which I don't pay a lot of attention to that part, but they do a lot on African history and African leadership. And I see that as something positive because it has been my desire that the African that resides in America sees himself beyond slavery. So when I look at those videos, whether you question the accuracy of them or not, it gives you reason to pause and take a look, and even hopefully to spur a little research and look things up for yourself. So I saw that, and I looked at a couple of them, and I'm anxious to know what you guys think if you've seen them. But I like the fact that it shows us who we were as a rich people. As Pastor just said, most of what we hear about Africa is negative, but this talks about African history beyond slavery, and I think that's a positive thing. And the way the videos are set up are also positive. What are your take on that? If anybody has seen any of those, what do you think?
Well, I find those kind of sessions very informative, and if I find something that they have said that I don't know, that I can't say, hey, this is A1 or this is not spot on, it inspires me to go do some research. Because those TikTok videos, they not long-winded. At most, they 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Yet it's enough to keep me happy and motivated, or at least intrigued about what was said. Even in the things that we have said about a cable line, if a person is not familiar with it, because with me personally, in some cases, I ain't gonna tell you everything. I may tell you enough and say, look, go do your research on it. Then it'll be fulfilling to both of us in the conversation. I'm just not going to tell people everything. So those things of TikTok are not just TikTok, just a conversation. Someone say, hey, let me go see what this is about. And that's how I got hold of a cable line. Someone said when I was at the family reunion, that ain't the original name of Africa. I mean, Africa's not its original name, and I might have been 12 or 13, and I had to go ask Uncle Junebug, hey, how you spell it? Went to the library, and from there I learned something about it. So the TikTok commercials, they're very informative. However, if it intrigues you, you're obligated to do the research on it or find out about it. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry.
I want to mention something differently. I mean, different. Not different. When we talk about dedication, desire, I think maybe, of course, in energy. I think that maybe we can look at how Jesus dealt with that. And again, I see the scriptures as being allegory, period. And as such, a story that to tell us how to not only search for, but also how to embrace spiritual truth. Excuse me. When Jesus went into the mountain, some translations say he went to a desert place. Regardless of which translation it is, the original source speaks about it being within. When Jesus went to this desert place, he went inside of himself, or we're being told that we are to do an introspection. And before you can truly do an introspection, you have to fast. And in this particular case, I am not talking about the abstaining from eating food. I'm talking about what the word in the Aramaic means, fast. Speaks to there is a great amount of exertion that you have to go through in order to break through the limits of your flesh, in order for you to move beyond the embracing of materialism. Your flesh is material. Breaking through all the things that we have been taught. And what happens is, when we break through that, the same things happen with us as did with Jesus. The word that's translated as the tempter came, the tempter is not even there. That word comes from the same root of forgetting. And it's more of a word that forgetting an aspect of yourself. So when we are in this moment of in-depth introspection, we realize that the thing that has stood in our way of embracing and knowing who we are the things that are material. And it's not that we don't know it, it's that we have forgotten it. And that's what Jesus was dealing with when we termed them as the temptations. Jesus was dealing with the resurfacing of those things that we have forgotten. And if you really think about it, Jesus did not get to this place of pushing himself to the extent that he would get to a place of remembering everything about himself. Those things that came into play were there in his mind to really challenge him as he sought to be reminded of who he is. It is no different than we start this journey, and now we spend a lot of time with each other, of course, in our study, but we also spend a lot of time with ourselves, but not enough. Because what happened when Jesus was teaching us by example, what was being said here is, if you really are who you say you are, if you are the Son of God, if that's who you really are, that was nobody saying that to him. Because if you think about it, when did Jesus say to quote unquote the devil that I'm the Son of God? So where did that come from? It came from inside of him, because religion had taught him different than what reality is. And when he says that, if you really believe that you are Elohim, then that means that your spirit, your spiritual being, is in charge of everything, especially those things that you're involved with. So if that's the case, then make these stones become bread. All he was saying was those things that are hard in you, those things that you struggle with, make them become bread. Make them become your source of enlightenment. Make them your nourishment. Feed off of what you see. But what was his response? That you can't live by bread alone, meaning that you cannot live based on the material world that you observe, based on the material essence of things in this world. Your life is not sustained by those things. In order for us to become the essence of who we were created to be, we must understand that this material world is not the source of our life. So Jesus is saying that our life does not turn, our life is not based on the logic of our daily needs, whether it be our bodily needs or whether it be our needing, thinking that we need 9 cars or 15 houses, whatever, those material things. Our life is not based on that. Our life is inspired from the source of what reality is, and that is who we are, the essence of our being. So I'm saying all that to say this. When we put ourselves in a space where we are able to do a self-check, self-observation, we have to push it to the limits, as opposed to being sidetracked by the distractions. When we say let it flow through, let it flow. And when it does, those things that you need to deal with in this realm are presented to you. And there are times when they are presented to you at that moment, and there are times when they come to you later. They have already been uncovered, but they are not presented at that moment, but they come to you later. And they reoccur until you recognize that this is not the source of your life. And if this is not the source of your life, then you should not let it drain life from you. If this is not the source of your life, you should not allow it to put you in such a state that all you want to do is cover your head up in a dark room in a state of depression. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that depression is not real. I know it is. I personally know it is. However, I am saying that we are in a place where we should not allow depression to control us to the extent that we don't pick up the phone and call someone to help us get through it, or we don't deal with it ourselves. And when I say that, if you think about the things that depress you, if you think about the things that depress you, 99 and 9/10% of them are inextricably tied to what you see with your eyes or what you experience as a result of what you see with your eyes. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about draining life from you. When we, as Catherine said, when we sit with it, when we are put ourselves in a space where we breathe and remind us this is not who you are. Remind ourselves these things are coming to me for a reason. I have been in financial straits in my life, and probably a lot of you have. Some of you have not, but I have. And I had to be pulled out of that, not only by me individually, but by those around me. But I did not realize that this is the same thing that Jesus was talking about when he talked about man not living from bread alone, because that word that's translated as bread, when you look at it through the eye of the Aramaic, what you see is everything that influences your life in this material world. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Any questions or comments? So we are in that wilderness, and I at the onset, and I keep going back to this, when Nick talked about the chaos, that chaos is visual. We allow our eyes to dictate what we experience. And if we feel some kind of way because of that chaos, then that chaos is actually guiding us more so than the essence of who we are, more so than the spiritual energy that we are. And if we allow that to continue, then we get to a place where we are distrustful, we are depressed, we are angry, we just go through all kinds of unhealthy emotions. So I'm saying, in essence, fasting is more, and let me say this disclaimer first. I have fasted for 40 days, 40 nights, literally. And from the point that happened, that's when I've begun to see more clearly what the scriptures are saying. And I'm not saying for anyone to do that, because if I understood then the way I do now, I would not have done that, needed to do that. But I needed to do that in order to see what I see now. I had to get beyond the material understandings of the scriptures, the shouting, the baptism, the different denominations, and the hierarchy. All those things was shedded during that period. And I'm saying to you, you don't have to do that. Those 40, the number 40 speaks of generations. And you can remove the religious polity that you have received from generation to generation, simply by putting yourself in a space where you examine yourself, where you allow everything to flow through you without distraction, and whatever you are shown, you deal with it, whether it's at that moment or later on. Because when that happens, what you are saying is, I am not looking to anything in this material world to sustain me. I am sustained by the essence of who I was created to be. I am sustained because I am life. Does that make sense? Can you see that in relationship to what we have been taught about the temptation? Jesus was being reminded because he had forgotten who he is. That's why he went there. And please ask me questions about that if you don't see it or understand what I mean when I say Jesus had forgotten who he was.
Yep. Can you talk more about it?
Say again?
That I didn't understand what you was
Oh,
talking
okay.
about. Could you talk more about it?
Yes. What I mean by that is, if Jesus had not forgotten who he was, then Jesus would not be an example for us to be reminded of who we are. Everything that he went through after his baptism, he fulfilled what Jesus, let me put it this way, what Jesus did in our vernacular. When Jesus got baptized, he left the church. He had fulfilled everything of the church. And at that point, he was driven or guided by the Spirit to go within himself. So he separated himself from everyone else. And as he did that, he broke through the church teachings and began to experience what it feels like, what it's like to be who he was created to be. Now, how did we get to the place where we are? It was a spiritual encounter. Our desire with our questions led us to a place where we listened to what was being said internally. And as we listened, what did we do? We revisited everything that we had been taught. And we started searching for what does this really mean. And while we were searching for what it really means, we actually found ourselves. And in finding ourselves, we've begun to see all that we had forgotten because of what we had been introduced to. Does that make sense? Charles?
Yes, it makes sense. It makes sense real good.
Okay. Any questions or comments about that? And of course, the other aspects of this self-discovery that was mentioned in that fourth chapter, they also mean something totally different than what we have been told they mean. But I primarily wanted us to see what this bread thing was talking about, more so than anything else. Is the things that are difficult for us to see, the hard things within us, are the things that beset us. Those are the things that makes us angry. So here we are. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So Pastor, you're saying we forgot who we were because of our physical existence here in this realm. But we also forgot because we didn't spend enough time examining our own selves internally. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and yes, I'm saying we forgot also because we didn't even know we were supposed to. You know, the one thing above everything else that reinforced our forgetfulness. Guess what it was? Prayer. Think about that. Prayer blinded us. Prayer encouraged our forgetfulness because prayer taught us to speak to an external being and sit back and expect that external being to respond to everything we ask for or everything that we directed it to do. Can you see that, Audrey?
I do. And does that have to do with the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life, that kind of stuff that we
Yes.
were focusing more on in terms of our prayers?
Right. The moment that we begun to see what prayer looks like, the moment we started seeing what prayer looks like, we started changing. Remember when we first started talking about prayer is meditation? When we first started talking about prayer is not the multiplying of words, Jesus told us that is not multiplying of words. Jesus told us that, and told us to go into our closet. All of that, we blocked our sense of remembering. But the moment we saw that prayer is, and it is a type of meditation that ensnares the understandings of spirituality. It's a meditation that reminds us that we are one with everything that is, more specifically with the universe itself. We are the essence of that. When that happened, what happened? We begun to see who we are. But as long as we were using that methodology of prayer, it did not work out for us, did it? So we did not do this because we are smart. We did this because we were guided to do it. The questions that we've raised in our different church settings over the years, those questions is what guided us to this place where we are now. Those questions guided us to a place to understand what prayer really is, so we would know what it really means to be one with the Creator. Any questions about that? Comments?
Hello.
Well, Rev, one thing I would add to this, one of the things that really concerns me about prayer, and I'm kind of glad I somewhat broke this cycle. I don't believe in passing buck on to the Creator. And what I mean by that is I was invited to go or be present by way of a Zoom meeting, by way of a prayer meeting. And after I heard everyone's prayer, the person who invited me asked me, "Hey, George, how did you like it?" I just say, "Sound like to me, y'all passing the buck. Y'all asked the Creator to help the homeless situation. Whatever it is, you got to go to the Creator." And it goes into, well, you have to take everything before the Creator. And in my sarcasm, I'm like, I just blinked my eyes. I didn't take that before the Creator. Whatever you can do, I am a Creator. And it says something, I will accomplish things just as comparable as the Creator and things that are greater. So it's just that where I am now, if I can have an impact on a situation, I'm not going to the Creator on it. However, I do have to think about with what you all have said, and just by doing things on instinct. Sometimes you do need to, or I need to stand down on that. Stand down, give a moment to think. It's just that with prayer, and I know I've told you all this, when I got back from Iraq, my sister-in-law said, "I was praying for you." And I just said, "Thank you." Yet to myself, I was saying, in your prayer, you wasn't instructed to write me a letter, mail me no Cornhuskers lotion, or send me a Jet magazine. What kind of prayer was that? And so a prayer to me is, I'm not going to turn everything over to the Creator. If I can't do it, I have to turn it over to the Creator. And that Creator may not be the Creator that did the heaven and the stars. That Creator could be Mr. Charles. Hey, Mr. Charles, help me with this. Yet I'm buying into a place of what I can do, I'm going to go ahead and do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. When people say they're going to pray for you, I say, okay, I accept it graciously. Why? Because I understand where they're coming from. I understand that that's where I have been before. I understand that if they knew better, they would do better. When someone asks me to pray for them, I say, okay, because I know that they don't really understand what they're asking. Now, do I do that? Sure, I do it, but not the way they think I do it. So I'm very, very, matter of fact, I am more cautious with people who don't understand who they are and how I respond to them than I am with everyone on this phone. Because I know that on this phone, if we say something that you don't understand, you are going to respond with a question. If I say things to people who are not familiar with us and what we teach and what we know, then I am dismissing them. I am treating them as though they are beneath me because of what I have been shown. And if that had been the case, then no one would have followed Jesus. The multitude followed because he explained. He did not put them down. The ones who Jesus spoke to more harshly than anything or anyone else were the religious leadership. Now, I don't even speak harshly to them. They ask me a question, I answer it, but not in a haughty way. So I guess what I'm trying to make an effort to say is, we are not blessed and highly favored in the Lord. We are not filled with the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues. So you can't pray for me, but I can pray for you. That's not who we are. We are servants, and we serve humanity the way that Jesus served humanity, the way that Moses served humanity, the way that we are served by our Creator. Our Creator is our servant, not in the servant that we tell what to do and when to do it, but as a servant in guiding us, taking our ignorance of our spiritual circumstances, or taking our ignorance of spiritual understandings, and helping us to see the wisdom that we have been ignorant of for so long. And that's who we are to humanity. And especially when we are encountered by individuals or a collection of people who are from a religious setting or a non-religious setting. I'm done.
Yeah, good afternoon, Pastor. I just wanted to respond to George's comment, about the Creator and speaking in reference to Charles. And, there's two cosmic laws that I just want to share, and it talks about I am the Creator having a human experience. And the second cosmic law is I am to treat the Creator's creation as I treat the Creator in me. And George, when you spoke about, Charles, I think that, again, we have the power to create. So I appreciate you sharing that in the way that we can see it from the reality and the truth of who we are. And we are creators. And, I just wanted to, just thank you for making that comment. And, I'm done. Thanks.
No, George, repeat that second cosmic law, please.
I am to treat the Creator's creation as I treat the Creator in me.
I am to treat the Creator's creation as I treat the Creator in me, right?
Yes.
I am to treat the earth and its inhabitants the way I treat the creation, the Creator that I am. That's powerful. That means that we don't take advantage of each other. We don't take advantage of the earth itself and that which it presents to us. We are caretakers of all of that. And if we can remind ourselves of that periodically, I do believe that our responses that were once angrily expressed, we will have less apologizing to do. Yesterday I called someone and I said something to them, and I called them back and apologized for the way I said it. And they said to me, I understand that you got a lot going on, and I knew you didn't mean it that way. I know you. And I said to them, I still have to apologize for it because there was no reason for me to express myself that way. So what I'm saying is this. Had I taken the time to remind myself of who I am, then I would not have responded that way. I would not have spoken that way, rather, to them. If we can remind ourselves of this, then it's a different in how we speak to people. These three examples that Jesus gave us, I think they open us up more to be on the same page when we understand more clearly about what they mean. Maybe I don't know how much time we've been on, but maybe at some point we can look at the next two. Ron, I'm giving it back to you.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, before we get any further, I wanted to comment on some of the things that have been said, and even as we talked about the way that we used to pray before as well. I think it was sometime, maybe last week, I get a lot of the sessions used in terms of the time. We like just to be continued and continuous flow. But we talked about the idea of Christianity, of course, starting with essentially everyone in the Bible was brown and black, and how it was presented to us, of course, as and I'm going somewhere here, so please don't say exactly where I'm going, but just trying to, I guess, help understand. I'm trying to draw this in words. But the idea of a white savior and what it did to us in terms of us being or sort of forebearers of spirituality in the earth is we automatically look without, that we look with our eyes, we look out into the world in a sense, and for God. And God was always separate from us. And then therefore, automatically, because of that, some sense of disconnect and always trying to find and connect, but also it being possible because it's not of you, really. So no matter what you do from that approach, you would never, ever, ever truly get it in the same way that you're waiting for something in the future. And with that being said, it also prayer is a way of tradition that we have used prayers in this lifetime or taught to use prayer was very, very similar in the same way. It was to look out and request more so things that I would say not always, but more so leaning in physical nature as well. It's almost like we had physical nature sunglasses on, if you will, in terms of that's where our focus was automatically, but our mindset from looking without. We talk about the eye sees in a different way. The eye is not looking out like the two eyes and looking and recognizing things that are separate from oneself, but the eye sees things, the one eye, singular eye, sees things through the inside because it is the connection to the self. So in a sense, you're seeing something that you feel a relation to, a much closer relation to. It's like you're feeling within and then seeing out from the end. That's how you can see things that make no sense from a seeing in a physical standpoint, because you are seeing something that's much more intimate, much more closer, much more in tune, in a sense. When and I know I apologize a little bit for being all over the place. Thinking about, as Pastor Richie, you mentioned the 4th chapter of Matthew, with Jesus going into the desert and to be tempted by Satan, or the deceiver. He understood that he was going out there to challenge himself in a sense. And in so challenging himself and having to confront those things, or that separation that he had maybe felt or buried, beliefs that he held on that was still there, that was to put him in a position to, in a sense, face his demon, face that demon, to understand that and feel his connection to the word of God, in a sense. And we talk about the word of God, we talk about that that actual connection of us being the creator, and what George just meant. So the entire, I don't want to say thing that we're doing, or the goal and mission, I don't really care for all of those words, but the entire thing in terms of our own spiritual growth and understanding, everything that we see in the world, and that we're shifting and want to shift, that comes from shifting and seeing those things differently within ourselves. In terms of being a creator and creating the world that we want to create, the secret of what's very important, that is through all the chaos that has been mentioned earlier, is actually seeing and understanding, not fretting, but understanding that these things are being shifted for the better. We're creating something new. We're creating something more equitable. We're helping others to grow in the same exact way. We are, in a sense, the force that we then see the results of in this physical world. If you have a sailboat, there needs to be wind, which is creating power in order for that sailboat to move across the water. If it's a motorized boat, that rudder has to turn and create chaos and force to then propel that boat in the same way. So a lot of the things that we actually see is, as Nick and Minella said, a result of us pushing and changing things. Again, the key is not to be distraught and discouraged about seeing all of those changes, because then we then begin to create in that way. The key is to see the beauty and understand the power in that, and for our focus to stay on those things that we actually desire, not what we may be seeing or get caught up seeing with our eyes. And to, as it was also mentioned before, to ask ourselves, to gather ourselves as well, to go within and to change those things. That is the power that we, and not just have, that is the power that we are. I'm finished at the moment.
Thank you, Sheldon. Any comments on what Sheldon said? Anybody, questions or comments? Did you understand it?
I did.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Sheldon.
Maybe tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Pastor. Could I just say something before
Yes. Go
we
right
move
ahead.
on? Okay. The only thing I want to add to what's been said is that we've been told and we've come to understand and realize that the more chaotic things seem to be, the greater the opportunity for light infusion. And so I'm sort of where you guys are. Instead of wondering why isn't things changing, why aren't things changing, we should be saying, I'm grateful that all of this is happening, because that means that what we're doing is having a direct effect, and that there's so much more light and understanding and infusion of spiritual essence, not only in the macro, but people who receive it is going to occur and is already occurring. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
No, I was just saying thank you. I don't want to go into cast yourself down from this place, pinnacle of the temple, and the angels had charge of what they're actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I don't is because what happens is, after you have this breakthrough, the thing they call fasting, after you break through this physical environment that you see, then you begin to understand some other things. How people who, especially in charismatic settings, can do anything they want to do. And I'm not talking about when we're in church, we talk about people doing anything they want to do. We only ever talk about the corporation stealing, but we talk about people doing drugs, people having sex, all these kind. I'm not talking about that, because that's you. That's what you decide to do. What I'm talking about is when you survey everything in this earth, you have choices, and that's what this particular point of remembrance shows us. And that what Barbara just spoke is definitely a remembrance that is tied, inextricably tied to the understandings of what happened to Jesus when he was doing a self-survey. And maybe tomorrow we can delve into that a little deeper. I'm not saying we get off, of course, if your questions to comment, but I did want to insert that at this point, that maybe we can get us a deeper understanding of those other two and then pull it all together. Make sense?
Yes. I was I was trying to remember something, guys, where we talked about being baptized in the Spirit, and water baptism was no longer necessary. Where was that scripture? Anybody remember? Right offhand.
John, wasn't it John or Matthew when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist? When John the Baptist said that one would come who would not baptize with water but with the Spirit, that, and in that same book, I think it's
I
like
got you.
seventh chapter,
Okay.
maybe. That's what Jesus says.
I see it. I see it now. I see it. So when you deal with that, I wanted you, because y'all said something here that kind of I'm just wondering, what is the role that baptism plays here, because that seemed to be the catalyst of them all, of it all. I'm reading something here that I want you to deal with, and I'm reading it from Luke chapter 3, verse 21 says, "Now it came about when all the people were baptized that Jesus also was baptized, and while he was praying, heaven was open, and the Holy Spirit descended upon him in bodily form like a dove." So the forgetfulness, could all of this, the catalyst for all of it, be the baptism? So the verse
I got you.
that you see what I'm asking? Because the verse I'm asking about is, John said, again, I didn't see this at first. I'm in Luke 3:16, and John answered and said to them, "All as for me, I baptize you with water, but one is coming who is mightier than I, and am not fit to untie his thongs of his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire." So does that really take place? The transition of those baptisms take places right here with Jesus, does it not?
Yes.
And when you discuss this, then talk about baptism, because I kind of see it from a different place than I had before, the role that it plays in what takes place from this point on, what you've already explained.
Yeah, it is the catalyst. He fulfilled what religion expectations were. And when he meditated after that baptism, that's when it speaks of the Spirit coming upon him in the form of a dove. That is a metaphor. It was not like a dove. It was with the gentleness of a dove, the lightness of a dove, that kind of thing. That is what he's talking about. But we can delve deeper into that tomorrow. Ron, if you're talking, on mute.
I'm sorry, I was talking. I was saying that, looking at it from the perspective of Matthew, verse 16:3 says, and after being baptized, Jesus went up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were open, and he saw the Spirit. So it does it that we get the we don't see the role that he plays in all of this happening, all of this being internal. That makes it sound like it was an external event. That made
Right.
it sound like an internal God did something on his behalf, but that is not really what took place. So
Very important.
I'm agreeing with you, but I don't see it all. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, and I'm saying it's more there. And if you guys want to keep going, wonderful. However, if you want to wait till tomorrow, because the discussion of it is going to take us, further than it looks like it will. It seems as though there will be a three-sentence answer, right? But that's not the case. You on mute again, Ron?
No, sir. I'm listening. I'm just trying to feel what everybody wants to do. You guys want to pause until tomorrow, or do you want to keep going? What do you feel? Or why don't we pause then, Pastor? If you don't mind, then
Okay.
and we'll resume here tomorrow unless something takes us in a different direction. Is that okay?
Quick question for you, Ron, so I could do a little research on my downtime when I'm off. Where are we reading from? What book are we reading from? A chapter?
When Pastor started talking, I saw something and I didn't know. Look at. I went
Ron,
to
you
Luke
break.
chapter. Hello. Can you
Hello?
hear me?
You were breaking up,
Can you
Ron.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, you loud, bro.
Okay. Saying and said briefly that I went to chapter 3 looking at the same perspective of the same scriptures in chapter 3 to get a different perspective on it. Because I was just something kind of stood out to me, a couple of things he said. So I was trying to kind of tie some things together. But I was looking at chapter 3 of Luke, George.
Ron, may I speak to that? Just
Yes,
for,
sir.
when you read the Gospels, especially, and you see it written the same event, and they are recording it in different ways, it doesn't mean that either one of them is wrong. It is no different than 5 of us witnessing something and going away and writing what we witnessed, separate from each other. With you're not proofreading mine, I'm not proofreading yours. So you're going to include events or aspects of that event that I didn't pay attention to, and I'm going to include aspects of it that you didn't pay attention to. That's the difference in the Gospels that were written. So
Yes, I agree. And like I said, when you were speaking, I was hearing what you were saying. It was making sense, but it brought up questions in me, and that's what caused me to go look at something else. But I agree.
okay.
George, are you okay?
Yeah. I just needed to know the numbers. Appreciate you, boss.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, everyone. If everyone no more comments, let's resume tomorrow at 11 and see where it takes us. Okay.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Talk-
Thank you.